The man on the motorcycle never saw the badge. All he saw was a gun. It happened in seconds. A traffic argument, a raised voice, then a plainclothes man stepping forward, lifting his shirt just enough to reveal a holstered firearm, and then drawing it. No marked patrol car, no uniform, no flashing lights, just a weapon pointed chest high on a public street. The video hit social media within hours. By morning, the headline exploded. Police chief on leave after video shows him pulling gun on motorcyclist while in plain clothes. But the viral clip only showed 27 seconds. It didn't show what led up to it. It didn't show what happened afterward, and it definitely didn't. It showed what the internal investigation uncovered. If you believe accountability should apply to everyone, even those at the top, subscribe to Sweet Justice right now. Because this story isn't just about a gun. It's about power, protocol, pride, and what happens when authority forgets it's being watched. Saturday, 4:17 p.m. Downtown Riverton traffic was thick but moving. Evan Morales, 26, rode his motorcycle between lanes at a slow roll, easing toward the front at a red light. Legal? Technically no. Common? Very. Behind him, a black SUV edged forward aggressively. The EJ driver leaned on the horn. Evan glanced back but didn't react. When the light turned green, Evan accelerated normally. The SUV followed, closer than comfortable. 2 blocks later, traffic slowed again. The SUV swung slightly right, blocking Evan's path. The driver's door opened. A tall man stepped out. Jeans. Dark button-down shirt. No visible badge. "What's your problem?" the man shouted. Evan removed his helmet halfway. "You almost hit me." The man stepped closer. "You cut traffic. It's a motorcycle." The man's voice lowered, colder now. "You don't get special rules." Bystanders began recording. Evan noticed the phone cameras before he noticed the man lift his shirt. A holstered handgun, then, in one fluid movement, the weapon was in his hand, not aimed directly at Evan's head, but held forward, visible, intentional. "Back up," the man said. Evan froze. "You pulling a gun right now?" Someone shouted from the sidewalk. "Back up," the man repeated. A passing driver yelled, "Call the cops." The man turned slightly and snapped, "I am the cops." That line would echo for weeks. Within 10 minutes, uniformed officers arrived. The plainclothes man spoke first, identified himself. Chief Daniel Mercer, head of the Riverton Police Department. Evan stood there stunned. The officers separated both men. No arrests were made, no citations issued. But something had already happened. 3 bystanders uploaded their videos, and once video hits the internet, rank doesn't matter. Subscribe now if you know the camera changes everything. By 9 p.m., the clip had 200,000 views. By midnight, $1.3 million. The next morning, the mayor issued a brief statement. The city is aware of the incident involving Chief Mercer. An internal review is underway. Internal review. That phrase rarely calms anyone. Chief Mercer issued his own statement. "I identified myself as law enforcement. I felt threatened by the motorcyclist's aggressive approach. My actions were defensive." Aggressive approach? The video didn't show that, but it also didn't show the 60 seconds before filming started, and that gap would become the center of the investigation. Evan Morales retained an attorney within 48 hours, civil rights specialist Marla Kim. She held a press conference on the courthouse steps. "My client had no way of knowing this individual was a police officer. Drawing a firearm without clear identification is not de-escalation. It is escalation." The pressure intensified. City council demanded transparency. Community groups organized protests. And then, the announcement came. Chief Daniel Mercer placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Not fired, not charged. On leave. That distinction mattered because leave means review, and review means evidence. And evidence doesn't always match the viral clip. If you believe truth lives in details, subscribe to Sweet Justice, because what investigators uncovered next changed the narrative entirely. By Monday morning, Chief Daniel Mercer's office was locked, not sealed with tape. Not raided, just quiet. Administrative leave sounds temporary, procedural, almost polite. But inside a police department, it's seismic. His command access was suspended. His department-issued firearm was logged. His city vehicle reassigned. And, most importantly, internal affairs took control. If you believe investigations should be thorough no matter who's involved, subscribe to Sweet Justice right now, because this is where facts replace headlines. The viral clip started when Mercer's SUV door opened, but investigators pulled traffic camera footage from the previous intersection. There, grainy but clear enough, they saw something different. Evan Morales had merged ahead of Mercer's SUV, close but not dangerously. Mercer accelerated afterward, not dramatically, but enough to close distance. The footage showed the SUV drifting slightly toward the motorcycle's lane line. Was it intimidation? Or frustration? Intent is hard to prove, but motion is not. Internal affairs slowed the frame rate, zoomed, measured. No sudden brake check by the motorcyclist, no attempt to strike the SUV, no weapon visible on Evan. Then they pulled body camera footage. But Mercer wasn't wearing one. He was off-duty, plainclothes, driving his personal vehicle. That detail shifted everything. Because department policy had specific language about off-duty firearm display. Policy 8.14, Use of Force, Off-Duty Conduct. Off-duty personnel shall not initiate enforcement action except in cases of immediate threat to life or serious bodily harm. Immediate threat. Investigators replayed the viral clip frame by frame. Evan stepped backward when the gun was drawn, hands partially raised, helmet still on one arm. He never advanced. He never reached for anything. He said, clearly audible, "You pulling a gun right now?" The next key question. Did Chief Mercer verbally identify himself before drawing? Audio enhancement suggested no. The words, "I am the cops," came after the firearm was visible. That sequence mattered legally, because identification before escalation is foundational to lawful display. If you're enjoying this deep dive into policy and accountability, subscribe to Sweet Justice. We don't stop at surface-level outrage. Mercer sat for a voluntary interview with Internal Affairs. Calm, direct, controlled. He claimed the motorcyclist approached aggressively. He feared the rider might be armed. He lifted his shirt to signal law enforcement authority. He drew his firearm only as a precaution. When asked why he didn't remain in his vehicle and call dispatch, Mercer answered, "I assessed the situation as volatile. Immediate presence was necessary, but the investigators had one uncomfortable question. If you believed it was volatile, why exit the vehicle?" That question lingered, because exiting escalates proximity, and proximity increases risk. Mercer's response, "I did not want to be boxed in by traffic." That was plausible, but plausible isn't proof. Internal Affairs compiled a 43-page preliminary report. It did not recommend immediate termination. It did note, "Evidence does not support imminent threat at time of firearm display." That sentence leaked, and once it did, the city ignited. Protests formed outside police headquarters, not violent, but loud. Badge or not, that's brandishing. Accountability for all. City Council scheduled an emergency oversight hearing. The mayor faced pressure from both sides. Supporters of Mercer argued, split-second decision, high-stress environment. Officer safety priority critics argued, no badge visible, no threat visible, no reason to escalate. And in the middle stood Evan Morales. He filed a civil claim, alleging civil rights violation, unlawful intimidation, emotional distress. Marla Kim, his attorney, requested preservation of all internal communications related to the incident. That move changed everything. Because once emails are preserved, timelines get exposed. If you believe transparency changes outcomes, subscribe now. 3 days into the investigation, an internal email surfaced from a deputy chief to Mercer, time-stamped 11:42 p.m. the night of the incident. It read, "Daniel, optics are bad. We need to control the narrative before IA finishes. Control. The narrative, not clarify, not investigate. Control. That phrase hit social media like gasoline. The department responded quickly. The email reflects concern over misinformation, not investigative interference. But perception was already bending. Internal Affairs expanded scope. They now examined whether Mercer attempted to influence review, whether policy violations occurred, whether off-duty conduct standards were breached, then something else. Surfaced. Dispatch logs. At 4:16 p.m., 1 minute before the confrontation, Mercer did not call 911 or identify himself to dispatch. He did not alert officers until after the firearm was drawn. That mattered, because protocol encourages off-duty officers to disengage and request uniformed backup. Mercer chose confrontation. Instead, was it ego, instinct, training failure? If you want to see how this ends, and whether the chief keeps his badge, subscribe to Sweet Justice, because the final decision wasn't just administrative, it became public. The council chamber was full before sunrise. News cameras lined the back wall. Community members filled every seat. Officers in uniform stood along the side aisles, silent, watchful. At the center sat Chief Daniel Mercer, not in uniform. Dark. Suit. No badge on his chest. Administrative leave strips visible authority. If you believe leadership must answer publicly when trust is shaken, subscribe to Sweet Justice, because this hearing would decide more than one man's future. City. Council President Alana Brooks opened plainly. This hearing concerns the conduct of Chief Daniel Mercer on April 12th and whether department policy and public trust were violated. Internal Affairs presented first. No drama, no emotion, just facts. No imminent threat observed prior to firearm display. No pre-draw identification confirmed. No dispatch contact prior to confrontation. Off-duty engagement contrary to de-escalation guidance. Then came the policy comparison slide. On screen. Firearm display is authorized only when a reasonable officer would believe there is an immediate threat of serious bodily harm. Councilmember Reyes leaned forward. Did the motorcyclist advance on the chief? No. Did he display a weapon? No. Did he attempt to strike the vehicle? No. The room stayed quiet, because silence sometimes says more than outrage. When Mercer spoke, his voice was steady. I've served this city for 27 years. I have responded to hundreds of volatile encounters. I made a judgment call based on perceived risk. Perceived risk. That phrase carried weight, because the law allows officers discretion based on reasonable perception, but perception must align with observable factors. Councilmember Brooks asked directly, Chief, why not remain in your vehicle and call for uniformed assistance? Mercer paused. In hindsight, that may have been preferable. It was the first crack, not an admission of wrongdoing, but acknowledgement of alternative, and that shifted the tone. If you value accountability through process, not outrage, subscribe to Sweet Justice. While the hearing unfolded, Evan Morales, attorney, filed a formal civil complaint in federal court. Allegations: violation of Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable seizure, excessive display of force, failure to identify as law enforcement prior to escalation. Legal: analysts debated whether drawing a weapon without physical contact constituted seizure. Precedent suggested yes, if a reasonable person would not feel free to leave. In the viral clip, Evan froze. Hands raised. That image became central to the case. The city's risk assessment team quietly calculated potential settlement exposure. Not millions, but significant. Because civil liability doesn't require criminal guilt. It requires constitutional violation. Then came the hardest moment of the hearing. Councilmember Reyes displayed the leaked email. We need to control the narrative. Before IA finishes, he looked directly at Mercer. Chief, did you attempt to influence the investigation? Mercer answered carefully. I expressed concern about misinformation spreading online. I did not direct anyone to alter findings. Do you acknowledge the wording was inappropriate? Another pause. Yes, that one word carried consequence. Because leadership is judged not only by action, but by communication, and perception of interference erodes trust faster than policy violation alone. Behind closed doors, the mayor and council debated options. Reinstate with reprimand. Demote. Terminate. Negotiate resignation. The Internal Affairs final report stopped short of recommending termination. It did conclude, firearm display inconsistent with department's progressive de-escalation philosophy. That phrase was strategic, not unlawful, not criminal, but inconsistent with philosophy. In modern policing, philosophy matters, because departments across the country had restructured use of force standards toward minimal escalation. Mercer represented an older model, command presence, immediate assertion. The city had moved toward distance and dialogue. This wasn't just about one confrontation, it was about evolution. 5 days after the hearing, the mayor held a press conference. Cameras flashed. The statement was direct. Chief Daniel Mercer will not return to active leadership. Effective immediately, he will step down. A national search for new leadership will begin. Not fired, not terminated. Stepping down. But everyone understood. The badge was gone. The room reacted quietly. No cheering, no outrage, just closure. If you believe accountability doesn't always look dramatic, subscribe to Sweet Justice. The department implemented new reforms within 60 days. Mandatory identification protocol for plainclothes encounters. Immediate dispatch notification requirement for off-duty engagement. Expanded body camera access for supervisory staff. Updated de-escalation retraining for command personnel. Even Morales' civil case settled confidentially 6 months later. No admission of liability, but compensation acknowledged harm. Mercer never faced criminal charges, because criminal intent was not provable. But administrative standards are different. Leadership standards are higher, and public trust is fragile. The viral video lasted 27 seconds, but its consequences reshaped an entire department. This wasn't a story about villainy, it was a story about perception, policy, and pride. A gun drawn without uniform, authority assumed without visibility, and a community deciding that leadership must match modern expectations. Because when power forgets transparency, cameras remember. And in today's world, the eye camera is often the first witness. If you believe justice must apply evenly, from the street to the chief's office, subscribe to Sweet Justice, because accountability doesn't weaken institutions, it strengthens them. And sometimes the most important verdict is the one delivered by public trust.